Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the seventh annual general meeting of Coast Capital Savings. I'll call the meeting to order. My name is Bill Wellburn, and I'm your chair. This is your meeting, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to tell you about Coast Capital Savings, and we're here to listen to you. Once again, we have members and guests join us via webcast. Welcome to those viewers. Webcast participants can submit questions via the internet, and we'll include them during the members' open forum discussion later in the meeting. Our rules require that all members be notified of a general meeting. Notice of this 2007 annual general meeting was provided in October 2006 as part of the annual request for qualified candidates for this year's director elections, which was mailed to all members. Our rules require that 50 members in good standing shall constitute a quorum for a general meeting. We have more than that number of members here. We'll have a final count shortly. But for purposes of getting on with the meeting, we do have a quorum. We'll close registration at 5:15, and at that time I will provide the meeting with the actual number of members in attendance. Ladies and gentlemen, the seventh annual general meeting of Coast Capital Savings is duly constituted for the transaction of business. Now, does everyone have an agenda? If not, we can get one to you. I'll just refer it to it briefly. Once we have dealt with introductions, the appointments, and the minutes, I'll present a report on behalf of your board of directors. This will be followed with a report by our Chief Executive Officer, Lloyd Craig. Under item number 10, you'll hear from Carlo DeMello of KPMG Chartered Accountants regarding their independent audit of the credit union's financial statements that they've conducted on your behalf. The meeting will then receive the 2006 audited financial statements, followed by the appointment of external auditors for 2007. Under item number 13, Doug Stone, the chair of our Nominations and Election Committee, will report the results of the 2007 directors election. Under item number 14, I'll report the results of the ordinary and special resolutions, and then we'll deal with any new business. Closing remarks will follow, and the business meeting is scheduled to conclude at approximately 6 p.m. This will be followed by the members' open forum, and we expect to conclude that around about 6:30. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? If you can identify yourself. Tom Kirstein, thank you. Seconder? Please. Frank Harper. All those in favor of the motion, please. Hands up with your registration kits. Thank you. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Now, the rules of order are included in the agenda, and I'll just review some of the key points quickly. Please identify yourself as a member by displaying your blue information package that was given to you at the registration desk. I would ask you to please make your way to one of the two floor mics located in the aisles and await recognition by the chair. If more than one person wishes to speak, the chair will determine the speaking order. Discussion on motions and resolutions is limited to 3 minutes per member, except the mover may speak a second time to close any debate. And the reason for doing so is to allow all those who wish to speak an opportunity to do so. The rules require that members' remarks be confined to the question or the topic before the meeting. Each member joining us tonight who is age 19 or over is entitled to one vote. Voting will be done by a show of hands using the blue registration packages unless a secret ballot is requested from the floor and determined appropriate by the chair. Are there any questions on the rules of order and debate and the voting procedures? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the rules of order, please? Ken Martin. A seconder, please. Doug Stone. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your blue packages. Thank you. Any opposed? Motion is carried. I'll now move to item number 5, and I'll start with the introductions. At the head table, we have Karine Zimmer on my right, counsel to Coast and associate with the law firm Borden Ladner Gervais. And to Karine's right, we have Linda Taylor, secretary of the board. And to my left, we have our President and CEO, Lloyd Craig. We have all but one of our directors here tonight. Mary Jane Stenberg is out of town and unable to attend in person this evening, although she's probably online watching. So with us tonight, we have, and I'll introduce these people. If you could please stand so we can see you. Christine Brody, please. And we want to get you on the webcast so people at home can see you. Thank you. Daniel Burns. Dan? Dan's the chair of Credit Union Central of British Columbia. He's also chair of our governance committee. Frank Harper. Frank is chair of our audit and risk management committee. Ken Martin. Ken is chair of our conduct review committee. Gordon Munn. Gordon Munn is chair of our investment and loan committee. Doug Stone. Doug Stone is chair of our human resources committee and chair of our nominations and election committee. Elizabeth Woods. Please, Elizabeth. And Bob Garnett. Bob is first vice chair of the board. And beside Bob is Karen Kestelow, second vice chair of the board. We also have some special guests with us this evening. We have Tom Kirstein, former chair, and Ken Jones, a former director. Ken? And from Credit Union Central of BC, we have Philip Hemming. Philip, thank you for coming. I'll now make some appointments. Corrine Zimmer, whom I introduced a few moments ago, I'll appoint parliamentarian for the meeting. Linda Taylor, I'll appoint recording secretary for the meeting. And we also have Gary Delamate here today, and he is our returning officer for the meeting. The minutes of our last annual general meeting are included in your registration package. They're also available by way of download if you're watching the meeting at home. If you just reference the AGM site, they are there. The Board of Directors reviewed and approved the minutes of last year's AGM, and that approval was made on June the 8th, 2006. The minutes are presented to you this evening for your information. May I have a motion to receive the minutes, please? Norm Cranach, thank you. Seconder, please. Frank Harper, thank you. Are you ready for the question on the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. Business arising out of the minutes. At our last AGM, a member questioned the use of Robert's Rules of Order, which he advised us are American in origin versus using a Canadian source. Following the meeting, this matter was referred to our Governance and Member Relations Committee. We also had an opinion from our legal counsel, and as a result, the committee recommended changing to Nathan's company meetings, including Rules of Order, authored by Hartley R. Nathan, QC of Toronto. We'd like to thank the member for raising that matter last year. Is there any further business arising out of the minutes? Thank you. We'll move now to item number 9 on the agenda. I believe it's number 9, the report of the Board of Directors, might be number 8. And I'll just remind you, if you have any questions on the board report or the CEO report or reports that follow, we'll be happy to address them during the new business or during the members' open forum. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned a few moments ago, this meeting is being delivered over the internet via webcast, and this is our second year for providing this broad access to the meeting. However, it's the first year since 2001 that we haven't video conferenced this meeting between the mainland and the island. And this year now completes our transition to webcasting, and in the future we'll be rotating the AGM throughout our various trade areas. I should also point out that at this point in the transition, we also convened a couple of town hall meetings, and that was last week. We had one in Victoria and one in Abbotsford, where members had an opportunity to access both myself and our CEO. The report in this year's, or pardon me, the theme in this year's annual report, which I assume everybody has in their packages, is called a road less traveled. And I see a lot of annual reports during the course of a year, and I really commend our communications people for the quality of this report. I'm a minor contributor to it, but the clarity and transparency of our annual report this year, I think, is second to none. In the board's report, I talk about one of our greatest strengths, and that's the cooperative structure of Coast Capital Savings, and the fact that we focus on returns to our stakeholders versus a sole focus on financial objectives. And that focus that we have on our stakeholders is help, and we call it simple financial help, but it's help of all sorts. In terms of our members, and looking at this road less traveled, we do things a little bit differently than a lot of other credit unions, where patronage dividends are often paid, and they represent a small rebate of service charges paid and perhaps a small addition to interest received on term deposits or a small rebate of interest paid on loans. At Coast, we've changed all of that. We now have a plain free checking account, so our members don't pay service charges. And when it comes to our deposits and our loans, we have a posted rate, and that is our best rate. I saw our ad in the paper this morning, and therein you see the Coast Capital deposit rates, and you see our bank competitors' deposit rates, and you notice there's probably about a 1% gap between the two, which means when you walk into Coast Capital Savings, you get that best rate, whether it's $2,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, versus having to negotiate and haggle for it. From our employees' perspective, Coast is now one of the largest private sector employers in British Columbia. 2,000 employees work at Coast, full-time and part-time. And as noted in the slide there, over our payroll costs this year, including benefits, were $100 million, which is a huge contribution to the British Columbia economy. And I should also point out that that includes our CEO's compensation. Some organizations, that would only be the CEO's compensation. On the community side, in 2006, we made a record amount of contribution to the community, some $4.5 million, which represents 7% of our pre-tax income. And again, we're on a road less traveled by our bank competitors. If you look at banks, and I saw this in the Globe and Mail, their contribution in aggregate to the community, to charities, was some $235 million, which is a lot more than our $4.5 million, but their $235 million represented 1% of pre-tax income. Ours was 7%. And in 2006, we supported over 500 not-for-profit organizations, and there's three notable examples on the screen right in front of you. In Victoria, Boys and Girls Club, and these are our staged contributions. We don't write that check all at once. We do it over 2 or 3 or 4 years, but a $250,000 commitment to Boys and Girls Club. But you know, we do more than just support them with money. We also support them with our people. With Boys and Girls Club, Debbie Dempsey, who is the manager of our community relations department, she has served something like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years on the board of Boys and Girls Club. And when Boys and Girls Club had a project in Victoria to repaint their gym, some 25-odd volunteers turned up from Coast Capital Savings to help paint their gym. And I believe our CEO was one of them. He says he was, yes. Good work, Lloyd. In Richmond, one of the projects we're involved here in Richmond is Volunteer Richmond, and we've committed $300,000 to the Leadership Richmond program. And in Richmond, it's amazing that the volunteer program in Richmond includes some 17,000 people. That's larger than a lot of municipalities are in British Columbia. And Tracy Kala of our community department serves on the advisory committee of that organization. Marley Cool, another staff member, acts as a mentor and assists in training sessions. In Surrey, we're supporting Vibrant Surrey to the tune of $150,000. Coast is one of 4 partners involved in Vibrant Surrey, and this is a community-based initiative dedicated to poverty reduction and strengthening the community. It has members from every sector of the Surrey community, and it's a sister program to one on the island called the Quality of Life Challenge in Victoria, which is another partnership that Coast is supporting. Daisy Kwan of our community department is playing a vital role in the vibrant Surrey. And you know, beyond our three primary stakeholders, we have this fourth stakeholder called Coast Capital Savings itself. And you know, I'm very pleased to say that our fourth stakeholder, the credit union itself, is doing very well. Our financial results were amongst the strongest of all Canadian credit unions this year, and our CEO will talk about that shortly. I'd just like to turn for a moment to talk a bit about corporate governance. It's certainly a topical discussion as of the last number of years. From my perspective as board chair, I see the board having a lot of important responsibilities, but perhaps three of them are noted on the screen there. And the role of the board is to work with management in developing the long-term strategy on your behalf for the credit union. We at the board spend a fair amount of time critiquing and approving plans, dealing with policies that are brought forward by management or developed by the board itself, and dealing with major initiatives. And on a very regular basis, we are providing that constant oversight of operations. And to do these sorts of things, it's important that at the board table you have all of the expertise required. And when I look around the board table, the sort of requirements that we need in our directors are business skills. And I'm talking on-the-ground business skills, and I'm talking about executive business skills. We need expertise in accounting, in finance. We need expertise in legal and governance. We need expertise in human resources and information technology, marketing and branding, banking, wealth management, insurance, real estate, community, the environment. There's a very long list of things. And later in the meeting, Doug Stone, the chair of our Nominations and Election Committee, will tell you how we go about doing that very important thing of identifying candidates for you to consider for the board. But when we get the board together and operating, to have a successful board, we need the blend of that those experiences and skills that I've talked about. But we're looking for an ability for all directors to participate effectively. And by that, I mean bringing the insight and the strategic advice and bringing forward the tough questions that make management reconsider things or maybe think about doing things a different way. But at the end of the day, I believe what we're all looking for in any board is good judgment, and judgment that's based on thorough independent thinking. The way Coast Capital Savings goes about its nomination and election process, again, takes us down a road less traveled, but it's interesting to note that there's now other credit unions across Canada who are adopting a similar program of identifying candidates and making recommendations to the membership for election to the board. Just before I close, I'd like to speak briefly about corporate citizenship at Coast Capital Savings. Coast has been recognized this past year for several awards. And the award that I want to talk about is the Imagine Canada, which is an award for best corporate citizenship. This year, and for the third year in a row, Coast Capital Savings was named a Canadian leader in corporate citizenship in the financial service sectors by Imagine Canada. Now, Imagine Canada judges companies on their contribution to the community and their overall reputation and good corporate citizenship. If you look at their website, you'll find the criteria that they use in adjudicating their selection. I'll just reference 3 or 4 of them. It's a pretty comprehensive list, but the things that they look at is leadership in community building, the innovation contribution of the company to the community through partnerships with community organizations to address social changes, clearly stated policies and practices to ensure the ethical and responsible conduct of the business. And perhaps a very important one, transparency and accountability in reporting on the company's corporate citizenship performance. You know, the board provides the policy direction, but which includes all these sorts of things to our CEO, but it's him and his team and the 2,000 employees at Coast that deliver the results. And on your behalf, I'd like to thank them. This concludes my comments, but I would like to thank again my board colleagues for their tremendous dedication to Coast Capital Savings. We have a great organization, and the board provides very effective leadership in moving Coast forward. I would also like to thank you, our members, for the support that you provide to Coast Capital Savings, because you're the ones that make it all possible. Before I come to my final conclusion, I'll note that we have total registered members in attendance here tonight of 114. That excludes anybody who's viewing by webcast, because you have to be at the meeting to be counted as part of the quorum until we move ahead further in technology. Now I'd like to once again introduce our CEO, Lloyd Craig, to come forward. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see so many people here. I'm very pleased to be able to provide you with a report on Coast Capital Savings' financial performance and corporate achievements over the past year. Before I share the 2006 financial results with you, I'd like to say a few introductory words about our journey as an organization and what is established and continues to drive our momentum. Like every business, we are confronted with choices on how best to meet the expectations of the market and our members. That's because the needs of the market and the direction of the industry are not always the same. In fact, in some cases, they may be divergent. Businesses may become so ingrained in tradition that they may be unwilling or, in fact, unable to effectively respond to the true needs of the consumer. So the question is, do you just follow industry trends and conduct business as usual, or do you blaze the trail by charting new paths to helpful and value-based products and services? For us, the choice has always been clear, made clear by the fact that we never lose sight of two industry facts. Number one, this industry is oversupplied and therefore highly competitive. Number two, the consumer is always changing and their expectations are always rising. So, we blaze a new trail based on research, desiring always to give the market a highly innovative and therefore competitive suite of products. This commitment to innovation has translated into successful results over the last few years, and 2006 was no exception. In fact, I'm pleased to report that our 2006 performance will go down as the best we've ever recorded. I'll share a few highlights with you and direct you to our 2006 annual report for a full picture and more details on our fiscal year. So, net income for the year ended December 31st, 2006 was $53.1 million compared to $47.1 million in 2005, and that's an increase of 12.6%. Return on average assets was 0.65% in 06, unchanged actually from 2005. This figure shows that we are managing our assets and the business effectively. Coast Capital Savings assets increased to $8.9 billion in 06, up from $8.2 billion in 05. Mutual funds under administration increased to $1.7 billion in 06 compared to $1.4 billion in 05, which is an increase of 18% for the second year in a row. So therefore, total assets under administration, which includes assets on the balance sheet, added with assets off the balance sheet, increased to $10.9 billion in '06 compared to $9.7 billion in 2005. Retail term deposits grew $313 million in '06 compared to an increase of $51 million in '05, an improvement that can be attributed to the success of our new policy of being a haggle-free institution. Our commercial loan portfolio grew by 26% compared to 23% in '05. Net interest income, which is interest earned on loans and cash resources less interest paid on deposits and borrowings, was $197 million in '06 compared to $182 million in '05, which is up $15 million. I'm pleased to note that our overall operating efficiency as an organization improved from 74.4% to 73.5% as revenue growth of 7.8% exceeded cost increases of 6.4%. Our pursuit of operating efficiency will be relentless due to the competitive nature of our industry. Return on equity was strong at 15.52%. Regulatory capital declined from 10.8% to 10.34% due to strong loan growth, however, is well in excess of the level stipulated by our regulators. I'd like to take a few moments to give you a few examples of innovations in the past year that have served as drivers of our financial performance. Our flagship product, Free Checking, continues to be a major success. Free Checking alone attracted more than 22,000 new members in 2006. We introduced our haggle-free guarantee on term deposits last year, promising everyone our very best rate up front. Most financial institutions continue to ask their customers to jump through negotiation hoops to get a good rate. That didn't seem to align with our mission of simple financial help. This initiative has been a significant contributor to our deposit growth. We looked at how we could bring our value proposition to members who operate small to medium-sized enterprises, or what are known as SMEs, businesses employing 50 people or less. We know that 98% of businesses in BC fall into this category, and it's a market that continues to grow and offer great opportunities. Small businesses are also important to our roots as a credit union, because these hardworking entrepreneurs and family-owned businesses are the economic heart of all our local communities. That's why we introduced our Big Perks for Small Business program in October, partnering with other businesses to offer discounts on printing, shipping, and computer service costs to business owners. We will continue to take the path less traveled in 2007 in finding innovative solutions to the needs of this very important segment of our local and regional economy. I'm sure you read recently in the press about our innovative new business checking accounts. We have long-standing roots in Richmond, going back to one of our heritage credit unions, and I was honored to launch the first phase of our new Markets initiative at our Richmond Centre branch last March. This initiative will help us increase access to our products and services and boost awareness about Coast Capital Savings in the Chinese as well as the South Asian communities. Our research indicated that while we were doing relatively well across our broad market, there were untapped opportunities to enhance our brand in the Chinese and South Asian communities, both of which, as you know, are growing strongly. Just to give you a few examples of what we've done in the Chinese market, you can now access Coast Capital Savings' automated telephone banking line in either Cantonese or Mandarin, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also introduced 2 new dedicated contact center phone lines with Mandarin and Cantonese-speaking staff. We also have brochures in Chinese website, and we've increased our ability to provide service in Mandarin and Cantonese in key branches, including the Richmond Centre branch, and new branches opened in Yaletown in Vancouver and Metrotown in Burnaby. On the topic of new branches, we opened 3 in 2006, all featuring our innovative new Apereo design. We will continue to invest in new branches to enhance member access, and we'll be reaching a golden milestone with our 50th branch this year. Member access to the internet continues to increase, and there are many accessing this event today through our website. Several thousand of our members also do much of their banking online. We like to say our website is in fact our largest branch, and we implemented major improvements last year. You'll find it's a lot easier to navigate, and you may get a good laugh while you're at it, thanks to Julie, our online greeter. So financial results are just one way to measure the success of a company, so I would like to quickly touch on 3 indicators that are of equal importance to us. The first are consumers voting with their feet by switching to us from other financial institutions. For the second consecutive year, approximately 40,000 new customers joined us in 2006, a phenomenal figure that has helped us reach 360,000 in total membership. The second is what you have said in our 2006 member survey about our service and our products. You gave us an impressive 87% in service satisfaction. This exceeds the credit union industry average. New members gave us an even higher score of 90% for service satisfaction. The third is peer and industry recognition. The chairman earlier mentioned the Imagine Award, and we received a few other accolades in 2006. We were again included in the list of Canada's 50 best employers, published in the Globe and Mail's report on Business magazine, and received the YWCA of Vancouver's Exceptional Workplace Award. And our innovative marketing team was recognized as the Marketer of the Year by the BC chapter of the American Marketing Association. All this could not have been accomplished without our dedicated and hardworking employees. The 2 workplace awards are a testament to our commitment to staff through competitive compensation and benefits, such as our new FlexWise program that allows them to tailor their benefits to their needs. We also launched a new Connect Thinking initiative last year to promote internal innovation and teach leadership skills within our organization. We are constantly working to develop the next generation of Coast Capital Savings leadership. Our corporate university will greatly assist us in our pursuit of staying well ahead of our competition. In closing, I would like to thank our entire membership for their support and for choosing us to be their financial home. As well, thank you to the board for confidently leading the way as we explore uncharted areas of opportunity for Coast Capital Savings. And as always, thanks to our great team of employees. This year and into the future, demand from us and expect us to continue our journey of innovation with products and services that exceed your expectations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lloyd. I would now ask Carlo DeMello to come forward to the podium. And Carlo is a partner of KPMG in Vancouver and is the partner in charge of the audit at Coast Capital Savings. He is going to talk about, but hopefully not read, his auditor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening. We have audited the consolidated balance sheet of Coast Capital Savings Credit Union at December 31, 2006, and the consolidated statements of income, members' equity, and cash flows for the year then ended. The financial statements are the responsibility of the credit union's management. our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit. We conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards, which require that we plan and conduct our audit in order to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. An audit includes examining on a test basis, supporting evidence based on amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. An audit also includes assessing the accounting principles used and the significant estimates made by management, as well as evaluating the overall financial statement presentation. So, in our opinion, based on our audit, the consolidated financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of Coast Capital Savings Credit Union as at December 31, 2006, and the results of its operations for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian generally accepted accounting principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlo. Before we get to the financial statements, I should ask if there are any questions on the auditor's report. Not the financial statements, but the auditor's report. I didn't think there would be. Item number 11, receipt of the 2006 financial results. Lloyd has provided you with the highlights of our financial statements for 2006, and in the annual report you'll find a detailed management discussion and analysis, which is the plain English version of what those financial statements are all about. As required by legislation, your board has approved the financial statements on your behalf. I would like to ask if there are any questions on those financial statements. If there are none, I'll declare the financial statements received. Thank you. Next is the motion to appoint an auditor for 2007. It's your board's recommendation that KPMG be appointed auditors for 2007 and that their remuneration be set by the board of directors. May I have a motion to appoint KPMG as auditors for 2007? Thank you, Bob. Seconder, please. Thanks, Frank. Any discussion on the motion? Appointment of auditors? All those in favor then, please, indicate. Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. We move now to item number 13, report of the Nominations and Election Committee on the election of directors. And I would ask that the chair of that committee, Doug Stone, please come to the podium and provide us with his report. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening. Or is it afternoon? I'm not certain. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of the Nomination and Elections Committee to report the results of the 2007 Directors' Election. The Nomination and Elections Committee is appointed annually by the Board of Directors and is accountable directly to the membership of the credit union. The committee is comprised of a number of directors who are not currently eligible for re-election. This year, I chaired the committee, which also included Bob Garnett, Mary Jane Stenberg, and Elizabeth Woods. Once appointed, the Nominations and Elections Committee is charged by the Board of Directors with the responsibility of recommending those candidates whose particular skills and qualifications would add strength to the Board of Directors for the benefit of the credit union and its members. The role of a director is a serious responsibility, as each decision has a profound influence on Coast Capital Savings. That's why it's crucial to ensure directors have the skills and qualifications needed to help the credit union reach its vision to grow and expand in the future. To fulfill this mandate, the committee undertook the in-depth process of evaluating the current board's strengths and qualifications, identifying skill gaps, and recruiting and recommending candidates to run in the election. This process was completed with an independent governance consultant to ensure a fair, strong process. The committee's analysis determined that investment services, marketing and branding, financial and board experience are the skills required to enhance the board of directors for the ensuing year. It is important to note that these skills required to enhance the board of directors will vary from year to year in response to the changing needs of the credit union and the skills available at the board table. While many candidates may offer undeniably excellent skills, if those skills do not align with the current year's needs, the candidate may not be recommended by the committee. All members of the credit union received the information about candidate recruitment by mail in October. Interested members were provided with information packages and an opportunity to attend a mandatory information session. In an effort to eliminate bias and ensure all candidates are treated fairly, the committee elected to have the consultant, who is considered one of the most qualified governance consultants in Canada, interview the incumbent directors who were considering running for the board. The committee carefully reviewed and accepted the consultant's recommendation regarding the status of the incumbent candidates. The committee and the consultant then undertook a rigorous evaluation process involving interviews with qualified candidates, analysis of candidates' past work experience, community contributions, and detailed reference checks. At the end of the process, the committee and the consultant recommended 4 candidates who, in its opinion, are the most qualified to fill the available positions. A total of 7 candidates let their names stand for the 2007 Board of Directors election. 4 recommended and 3 other candidates. Member awareness and participation were recognized by the committee as a critical part of the election process. Advance notice was published in the fall 2006 member newsletter. This was followed by an election update, which was mailed to members with February checking statements and made available in branches and on our website. The formal election and AGM notice was sent to all members by mail in March, which included a booklet providing candidates' profiles, highlights of their skills and experience, and a comprehensive overview of the recommendation process. In the past, we have received feedback that the information presented to members about the committee's role in the recommendation process, formerly known as endorsement process, was not easy to understand. In response to member feedback, this year we tried to ensure the information was communicated as clearly as possible. For example, the recommended candidates were highlighted in the book with different colored pages, and their names were bolded on our ballot. This process is evolving, and I'm sure there will be additional changes made to the presentation of candidate information next year. Feedback is important, and I'd like to thank our members for their ongoing comments about this process. At the conclusion of tonight's annual general meeting, 4 directors' terms are expiring. 7 candidates are seeking one of 4 regular vacancies up for election on the board this year. The director election was conducted from March 20th to April the 11th, 2007, in accordance with the credit union rules. Each year, the Nomination and Elections Committee appoints an individual independent of the credit union to serve as the returning officer to oversee the election process. Jerry Delamatia, who has extensive experience as a senior electoral officer in federal and provincial election, served as our returning officer again this year. I am pleased to report that in this year's election, 8,487 ballots were cast. This is an 18% increase over last year's director election, which received 7,189 ballots. I'd like to thank members for participating in this important process. The 8,487 ballots cast included 397 spoiled and 641 rejected ballots, resulting in 7,449 valid ballots for the election. A spoiled ballot is defined as any ballot on which the member voted too few or too many candidates. A ballot was rejected if it was not possible to complete the required verification criteria. The individual results for each candidate are as follows. Bill Wellburn, total valid votes 6,588. Bill Cook, 6,528. Frank Harper, 6,512. Glenn Wong, 6,061. Gordon Munn, 1,909. Ben Phillips, 1,364. Hart Fortmuller, 834. The committee declares incumbent Bill Wellburn, Bill Cook, incumbent Frank Harper, and Glenn Wong elected to the Board of Directors for 3-year terms. Thank you to all candidates who let their names stand in this year's election. In closing, I would like to thank the members of the committee, Bob Garnett, Mary Jane Stenberg, and Elizabeth Woods, for their thoughtful contributions, patience, determination, and vision for the credit union to make what are some very challenging but critical decisions in support of good governance for Canada's second largest credit union. I can certainly say this committee made my work much easier. We look forward to answering any questions or hearing any comments you might have during the members' open forum later in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And personally, I thank those members who supported me, and I congratulate Bill Cook, Glenn Wong, and Frank Harper. We'll now move to item number 14, the report on the results of the resolutions. There were a number of resolutions that went out with the director's election, and I'll just review them quickly. The proposed ordinary resolution would establish a fair and enduring remuneration philosophy for directors. Ordinary resolutions require a 50% plus 1 vote for approval. The special resolution on director remuneration would authorize the board of directors to set future director remuneration that is based on 4 different requirements. First of all, it has to be consistent with the member-approved remuneration philosophy. Secondly, it's to be based on an independent compensation consultant's review of what has been paid to directors of comparable organizations. It would be reviewed every 3rd year, or every 3 years, and it requires the board to report to members annually the total amount of remuneration paid to each director. The third resolution, again a special resolution, was on the credit union rule changes, and its purpose was to update Coast Capital's rules to reflect changing corporate governance practices, in particular to ensure that the board has sufficient financial literacy skills amongst its members. Special resolutions, unlike ordinary resolutions, require a 2/3 majority to pass. The full text of the special resolution and the ordinary resolution are in the 2007 Directors Election and Ordinary and Special Resolutions Notice. At this time, I am pleased to announce the results of the ordinary and special, results of the ordinary and special resolutions, and that those resolutions were approved. We received a total of 8,487 ballots. You can see on the screen the percentage votes, 84% in favor of the ordinary resolution on director remuneration philosophy, 81% in favor of authorizing the board to set director remuneration, and 88% in favor of the miscellaneous rule change. I'd like to thank the membership for taking time to vote on the ordinary and special resolutions and participating in this important process. I'll now move to new business. Just by way of explanation, to ensure members receive adequate notice of matters to be considered at an annual general meeting, Coast Capital Savings rules state that ordinary resolutions to be eligible for consideration must be submitted to the board for review and consideration at least 90 days prior to the annual general meeting. Resolutions are then circulated to all members and either voted on by mail ballot or at this meeting. No resolutions were received from members by the published deadline of January 17, 2007. I'd now like to call for any new business. I have a gentleman at microphone number 1.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak now?
Yes, sir. Just introduce.
My name is Norman Rigglesworth. I've been a member for 49 years in Richmond, and I would like to make a motion, of course I'd have to get a second, I know that my motion is that all age pensioners get free security boxes, or anybody with a 25-year membership. I know I have to get a second. I don't have a seconder.
Well, Mr. Wiggles, I cannot accept the motion.
Can I accept it? Okay. Mr. Chairman, other banks give old age pensioners free boxes. I was flabbergasted when I found out they're getting free boxes. I guess I'll take my marbles and put them in the garden.
Well, thank you. And you know, your comment's taken, and staff are here tonight, and they will go back and review what you have to say. Is there any other new business come forward to the meeting? We'll get quickly to the members' open forum, but before we do, I'd like to close this meeting by, first of all, thanking two of our outgoing directors, Ken Martin and Gordon Munn. Ken has served on the board since 2004, and Ken has been a champion for community and environmental sustainability. He also brought to the board a lot of technology experience on the Canadian banking system, and Ken, we appreciate what you've brought to the board. Gordon has served on the board since 1990. He's a former board chair, and he's also served on the boards of Credit Union Central of British Columbia, Credit Union Central of Canada, and Stabilization Central of British Columbia. He's also served on the Canadian Cooperative Association. So, Gord, thank you very much. Could you please join me with a round of applause for Ken and Gordon? Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the conclusion of the business meeting. The open forum will proceed immediately after we close the meeting off. May I have a motion to adjourn the annual meeting, please? Frank, seconder? Christine, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you. We'll now proceed with the members' open forum. If you're leaving now, directors and staff aren't quite available for your questions, but will be available after we conclude the open forum. And if you're looking for a director, you look for a red boutonniere, and if you're looking for management, you look for a yellow boutonniere. We do appreciate your feedback. I understand there's a feedback form in the member kit that you received tonight. If you would take some time to fill it out, we do appreciate it. It does guide what we do at these meetings in the future. And we also have a recycle station out in the lobby if you wish to leave anything behind. We'll now start the members' open forum, and I recognize Mr. Wigglesworth at microphone number 1.
Mr. Chairman, in the past 49 years, I've missed about 3 meetings, and usually I request to tell a joke or sing. So are you going to give me one of the two, or any, or neither? I'd like to sing for you.
You're on.
I'm on. Well, in 1952, I emigrated to Australia from England. And on the way back 2 years later, when I served my time as a convict, we took the change off the leg. No money pulling the leg. But I was in Melbourne, and I went on the River Yarra on a big open boat, and I sang this song. It's called Sons of the Sea by a famous Scottish author. By the way, I'm not Scottish, I'm Yorkshire. Everybody thinks I'm Scottish, I'm Yorkshire. So all the good-looking ones, when I go like this, you stand up. When I go like that, you sit down. Just the good-looking ones. Okay, this song is called Sons of the Sea. Sons of the Sea, when you're bopping up and down like this. Sail in the ocean when you're bopping up and down like this. We can build the ships, my lads, when you're bobbing up and down like this. But you can't beat the boys of the old brigade when you're bopping up and down like this. For they rob the gold from their Spanish main when you're bopping up and down like this. Mr. Blair, you're not bobbing up and down. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Next singer. Microphone number 2. And I know we're entertaining questions through the webcast too. Perhaps we have one of those?
I'm just letting you know we don't have any questions from the webcast.
No, no webcast questions. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the open forum? Microphone number 1, please.
My name is Ken Jones. And
Oh, sorry, Ken, I've got a speaker at microphone number 1. I shall be with you next.
My name is Denise North. I'd like to, you mentioned that they were opening a lot of new ones in order to give better access. We have a problem, I think, in Richmond, where you close 3 branches on a Monday, which are all on the same west side of number 3 road, which encompasses a very large area. And I think this is a disgrace and a discriminating against the people of a 3-mile radius from river to river and to the ocean. And I think that's unwarranted to leave us like that, and you're opening up new ones for better access. And then you also, in the Steveston Credit Union, we're the only ones that do not have protection from the elements or anyone else at the ATM. And I have brought that up several times with people, and I've been given a lot of reasons or excuses which don't hold water, because then you would have to take the doors off all the other ones too. And I think it's awful that we're left like that. We're the only ones that do not have an opportunity to be inside. We're out in the wind, we're out in the rain, and not secure either. And Steveston is growing the biggest of anywhere. Why isn't that branch getting bigger? I mean, why are we left like that?
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I'll speak about this from a board perspective, then I'll have Lloyd address perhaps more specifically. But when we looked at, when the board looked at the idea of extended hours amongst all of our regions, we received a fairly detailed study of members' access at all the various branches. And what we tried to do was to realign access to the branches by way of extending hours so that we could serve members, the greatest number of members, in the most effective way. This unfortunately meant that some of the branches did receive shorter hours, but the whole issue is to get a balance between what's good for the members throughout the whole trading area. And you know, it's interesting too that the access that members have to Coast is really a lot more than just the branches. We have perhaps one of the best contact centers of anybody. And you can phone the contact center any one of the days of the week and speak to somebody who is highly qualified and can usually solve your problem. In addition, there's the telephone banking and the ATMs. Now, you bring up a point about the ATM at the Steveston branch. I know that management's always looking at facilities and ways that we can do things better, but often we're working with the constraints of a landlord and municipal zoning and a host of other things, and you've probably heard all this before. But your point's taken, and as we move forward, those sorts of things are always considered. Lloyd, do you want to speak any further about the branching or the access to the branches?
The only comment I would make on the access is that, as the chairman mentioned, we took some 6-day branches and made them 5-day branches, took the savings from that initiative and invested it in making about a quarter of our branches extended hours. which the members received that extension very well. They loved that. And but in those areas we were careful. I think we were careful that when we took branches from 6 days to 5 days, we ensured that there was a 6-day branch somewhere in that general area, so that if a member had to do banking on the Monday, they could. But as the chairman said, about 10% of our transactional business now is actually done in the branch. A lot of people do it through the internet, and obviously a lot use our automated telephone banking as well as our personal telephone banking. I might, as far as that particular area of Richmond, Joel, is that, can you, off the top of your head, do you know the branch that would be a 6-day branch in that area? Broadmoor and Richmond Center, yeah, our 6-day branches.
That is still 3-4 miles from anybody, but you know, there's nothing west of number 3. And it goes all the way 2 to 1 to the dike, and all the way to Steveston, and all the way to the North River as well. And to say that sure you have the internet and you have everything else, but you go to a machine that wasn't working, it's not open, so you got to drive to another one. That happened to me. And also, people know that it's closed and the parking lot is full from other cars, and you can't even park there. And I think that the people from that amount of people on that many miles, huge area, should have one open on a Monday. If you're away on a weekend, you can't even get, you're limited what you're going to get out if you just come back from somewhere. I mean, it's just not member friendly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone number 2, Ken.
My name is Ken Jones. I've been a member of this credit union for the last 35 years, and I've been a member of the credit union movement since I was in elementary school. I would like to congratulate the board and staff and all of the members for the very successful year and the very many successful years the organization has had. But I'd like to also focus on a few items. As this lady has said, some of the ATMs are not sheltered, and it's not just in Richmond, but it's also in White Rock. And there are some rather miserable weather times as the global warming seems to be causing some changes, and I think we need to take some consideration to provide better sheltering of some of those ATMs that are out in the outdoors right now.
Good.
I'd also like to suggest that I was very impressed with the large amount of funds that we've gained in the interest from interest that's netted on the report, and that perhaps we need to make a little less of that and put some funds into some of the urgently needed areas, such as the recognizing that we are not competitive in the U.S. traveler's checks, for instance. I had an example today of finding that we were 0.75 short of the Royal Bank in White Rock, getting quotes from both of them. And also the areas where we have, we don't pay any interest on our nonprofit accounts. And I think it's about time we supported all of our nonprofit members with interest payments for their small amounts, but they're very significant to their organizations. So I'd like to ask the board to give serious consideration to making these changes.
Good.
I'd also like to ask about what I perceived in some of the commentary of the people being elected, or the people that have been nominated or were nominated, that indicated the possibility that there was going to be some expansion right across Canada. Is this a policy of the board to plan to expand the credit union outside of British Columbia?
Yes.
And certainly across Canada? Are we
Yes.
going to try and compete with the national banks?
Yes.
And are we going to merge with Desjardins in Quebec or something like that?
Well, that might be going beyond the pale in terms of the language barriers. But to respond to the across Canada, we do have a vision. Our vision is yes, coast to coast. And when you look at the power of merger, we've seen it with our organization. We've put 3 successful credit unions together, one on the island, Richmond, and one up the valley, Surrey Metro. And what we've got now is better than what any one of them used to be. And we all thought that our respective credit unions were pretty good, but we've got something now that's better. So if we can continue putting credit unions together, we're going to end up with something that serves us better as consumers. It's going to provide more opportunities for our employees. We're going to be able to do more in the communities. And to this end, you know, our CEO is leading a force, a national force, that's seeking changes to banking legislation. And our ambition is to one day be something called a cooperative bank, which is like a national credit union where the provincial barriers no longer are obstacles, where we could find a credit union like Coast elsewhere in Canada and put them together. I mean, what's possible is really exciting. The power that we have as a cooperative organization that's not beholden to shareholders in the TSX sense is something that can really take us forward for the benefit of you, me, as consumers, and for employees and the community. So we're excited that the future for Coast to Coast is really something that can move our organization forward.
I would ask that the board be very, very cautious in this area. We have spent a lot of money in the past in trying to grow big. I refer you to Canada Trust and the failure that we made there, and that cost millions of dollars to the membership. I also refer you to other attempts to have mergers that weren't successful, which cost a lot of money. There has been a dream by some people in this credit union that they would run a credit union that was actually another bank. And I don't want to see our credit union become a bank. I want it to be what you have stood for coming through Richmond, that this was going to be a truly credit union serving the people of our community, not trying to be a big bank. Banks have never served us to the extent that the credit unions have.
And that is our vision. Microphone number 1.
We have a webcast question, and the question is, will next year's AGM also be webcast?
Yes. I say yes quickly. That's certainly our plan. And the AGM will probably be somewhere else than here at the River Rock Casino in Richmond.
May I have another kick at the can?
Well, you know, I'll have to ask the people here whether they want to hear you again. Hands up if you want to hear
good.
Mr. Wigglesworth.
Tell me, why can't we have tea at the credit union? You always tell coffee, you give coffee, but why can't we have tea? T-E-A, tea.
You know, I get asked a lot of questions at these meetings. I've been asked all sorts, but that's perhaps one of the most difficult questions I've been asked. I got no answer for you.
Well, one more thing. I sang my song, and now I'd like to tell you a joke.
You got to keep it short, and you got to keep it clean.
Okay. Mary went to church one day, and she told the sidesman it was a birthday. If you don't know what a sidesman is, that's the usher. That's the man who shows you to the seat in the church or in the theatre in the dark. That's the sidesman. So the sidesman told the minister that it was Mary's 21st birthday. and he told Mary she could have the next 3 hymns, H-Y-M-N, not H-I-M. So Mary looks around, she says, I'll have that man in the blue suit, him in the white suit, him in the black suit, him, and him. And you know, 10 years ago, this lady called Mary, she said, how did you know my name was Mary? She came to me at coffee time. She said, and how did you know it was my 21st birthday? I said, listen dear, I just picked the name out of the hat. No one's going to give me a round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the open forum? Well, we've done very well tonight. I understand there's a hockey game on shortly. Perhaps that's top of mind for a lot of people. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out tonight. We appreciate your input, and I bid you good night. Thank you.